The House will come to order.
It's crowded. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker,
The chair recognizes the Sergeant at Arms.
I have the honor to announce the arrival of the members of the Senate of the State of Minnesota.
Members, please stand. The Sergeant at Arms will escort the members of the Senate to the front of the chamber. The joint convention will come to order. Prayer by the chaplain.
Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, known by many names and beyond all naming, we pause in this moment, mindful that we are held in something greater than ourselves. We give thanks for Minnesota, our home within your creation, where land and water have shaped our lives and where a quiet beauty steadies and restores the human spirit. We give thanks for the people of this state, for good neighbors who turn toward one another with courage and compassion, and for the quiet grace of lives knit together in care across every difference. And we remember this day what is heavy among us. With gratitude, we honor those who have gone before us, even as we hold the deep grief of their absence. Draw near to all those who mourn. Keep us mindful, too, of those who carry heavy burdens, those who struggle for daily needs, those pushed to the margins, and all those for whom life feels uncertain or precarious. Stir in us a deeper responsibility to one another, that no one is left to carry their pain alone. Be present, especially this day, with those entrusted with our shared life, our governor, legislators, justices, and all who serve. We give thanks for their willingness to answer this call. Ground them in wisdom, steady them in purpose, and keep ever before them the lives and communities shaped by their decisions. Call us all in this state and this nation back to what is true and life-giving. Where we are divided, draw us again toward one another and toward a shared purpose greater than ourselves. Help us to honor what has been handed down and to prepare faithfully for what is yet to come, so that in our life together, Minnesota may grow toward a common good marked by dignity, justice, freedom, and peace for all. We offer this prayer in gratitude and hope. Amen.
The chaplain for the joint convention is Reverend Mariah Furness Tolgard from Hamlin United Methodist Church in St. Paul, Minnesota. You may be seated. The secretary will call the roll.
Abler. Barr. Bolden. Carlson. Champion. Champion present.
I recognize Senator Murphy.
I move that further proceedings of the roll call be dispensed with.
Senator Murphy moves that further proceedings of the roll call be dispensed with. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. A quorum is present.
Madam President, Madam President,
The chair recognizes the Sergeant at Arms.
I have the honor to announce the arrival of the Honorable Natalie E. Hudson, Chief Justice, and the honorable members of the Supreme Court.
Members, please stand. The Sergeant at Arms will escort the Chief Justice and the members of the Supreme Court. You may be seated.
Madam President, Madam President,
The chair recognizes the Sergeant at Arms.
I have the honor to announce the arrival of the constitutional officers of the state of Minnesota, the Honorable Steve Simon, Secretary of State, and the Honorable Julie Blaha, State Auditor.
Members, please stand. The Sergeant at Arms will escort the constitutional officers to the front of the chamber. You may be seated.
Madam President,
The chair recognizes a sergeant at arms.
I have the honor to announce the arrival of the Honorable Peggy Flanagan, Lieutenant Governor of the state of Minnesota.
Members, please stand. The sergeant at arms will escort the lieutenant governor to the front of the chamber. You may be seated.
Okay, got that.
Madam President,
The chair recognizes a sergeant at arms.
I have the honor to announce the arrival of the Honorable Tim Walz, Governor of the State of Minnesota, and the official party.
Members, please stand. The Sergeant at Arms will escort the governor and his official party to the front of the chamber.
Mr. President, good to see you. On track. Chief Justice. Thank you for that. It's a beautiful story.
Thank you. Thank you.
You may be seated. Members of the Joint Convention and guests, I present to you the Governor of the State of Minnesota, the Honorable Tim Walz.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, my fellow Minnesotans, and thank you for tuning in tonight. I'd like to start tonight by recognizing some of the distinguished Minnesotans who've joined us in this chamber tonight. Speaker Demuth is here, along Leader Stevenson and the members of the Minnesota House of Representatives. Thank you for being here tonight.
It's a joyous
Senate President Champion is here. Along with Majority Leader Murphy and Minority Leader Johnson. Thank you. We're joined tonight by members of the Minnesota Supreme Court, and a very special thank you to Chief Justice Hudson, and wishing her all the best on her upcoming retirement. My fellow constitutional officers, Auditor Blaha, Secretary of State Simon are here tonight. Thank you. Members of our cabinet, staff, and the administration, and of course, the incredible state workforce. I'd like to extend a very special welcome to our sovereign tribal leaders who have joined us tonight. And Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. And of course, Minnesota's second gentleman, Tom Weber. He's looking so dapper. And to the love of my life, Minnesota's First Lady, Gwen Walz. And for the first time in 8 years, Gus Walz is in the house, so somewhere. He's wandering. He's wandering around. And to all our other honored guests, I also want to recognize someone who isn't here, someone who should be here, someone who's had a major role to play in every important achievement over the last 7 years that I've had the honor of serving, someone whose insight, whose energy, whose leadership we all miss so much. When Melissa and Mark Hortman were taken from us, we didn't just lose treasured friends. We lost the most consequential speaker in Minnesota's history and the most talented legislator I have ever known. Mark and Melissa's children, Sophie and Colin, are here tonight, along with Colin's wife, Alina. You have shown so much courage and grace over these last months. Minnesotans have their arms wrapped around you. I'd like to take tonight to start out with just a moment of silence for the Hortman family. Thank you. Well, it's been no secret. This has been an unimaginably difficult year for Minnesota. Our season of grief began last summer when we lost Melissa and Mark, and we nearly lost John, Yvette, and Hope Hoffman. We are so deeply relieved and grateful that John is back with us. Senator, I hope you know that you and Yvette and Hope have been surrounded by the prayers of an entire state. We'll never forget your courage and grit, and even as we've struggled to process the sickening act of political violence, we suffered another grievous loss in the mass shooting at the Annunciation Church in Minneapolis, when Fletcher Merkel and Harper Morsky were taken from us. Fletcher's mom and dad, Jesse and Molly, are here tonight, along with the principal of Annunciation, Matt DeBoer, and his wife, Rose. Our hearts are still with the entire Annunciation community, especially the families who've suffered physical and psychological injuries on that horrible morning. And then we experienced an unthinkable federal invasion of our state. For months, armed, lawless gangs roamed our communities in a campaign of organized brutality. Families lived in fear. Children were separated from their parents, neighbors from neighbors. Minnesotans who had done nothing wrong were subjected to racial profiling and unlawful detentions. And for no reason at all, we lost two more of our neighbors, Renee Good and Alex Preddy. We gather tonight in the long shadow of all those tragic, transformative losses. And yet, the state of our state remains strong. Indeed, over the last several months, the world has seen our strength, a strength that comes not from our politics, but from our people. From all the work we do here in St. Paul, the real work of moving our state forward is happening in communities across this state, as neighbors build and rebuild bonds that hold us together in the most difficult of times. Tonight, I want to talk about what we've done here at the Capitol and what we can continue to do to support that work in our communities. But make no mistake, Minnesota is at its best when everyday people show up for one another with compassion, with courage, with resilience. History may have its eye on our state, but we're writing our own story. That's been the case ever since I had the privilege of arriving here in St. Paul 7 years ago. I had just come from 12 years of serving in the United States House of Representatives, where discord and dysfunction seem to rule the day today. We're living through government by mean tweets. But here in Minnesota, I argued in my first State of the State address, we had an opportunity to do things differently. I wasn't naive. I didn't think we would agree on everything. And one Minnesota was never supposed to mean one point of view. But I believed that we could argue both passionately and in good faith. And I hope that even if we didn't share an ideology, we could share a vision of making Minnesota the nation's best place to raise a family. Agreeing on the what I think we can agree on the what, it's the how that we don't always agree on. We never feared the future, I said on that evening. We create the future. But I don't think any of us could have predicted the future that lay in store for our state. Nobody knew that we would be hit by a once-in-a-century global pandemic that would claim the lives of over 17,000 of our Minnesota neighbors, throw our entire economy and our entire way of life into chaos. Nobody knew that we would face a national reckoning with racial injustice and police abuse, one whose epicenter would be located very specifically at the corner of 38th and Chicago in South Minneapolis. And if anybody knew that I would wind up as a candidate for vice president, I would have appreciated the heads up for Gwen and I. So it's been a complicated 7 years, to say the least. But when I look back on the story that we've written together, I am more deeply proud of this state than ever before. There is, I believe, no better place in America to raise a child. And not to sound like your parents for some of the younger people, there's never been a better time to start a family than right now in Minnesota. For starters, our schools have never been in better shape, as evidenced by our record-high graduation rates. I've had the privilege of signing into law the most consequential education budgets to come out of this chamber in our state's history. Thank you. Thank you all. From cradle to career, we're preparing our kids for life in the 21st century better than anyone else. We've invested more than $1 billion in child care and early learning opportunities. We've added thousands of pre-K seats. We've made significant investments to improve child literacy, expanded access to mental health resources to students at every level. We've made college free for students with family income under $80,000. Together, we've invested millions in workforce development to connect Minnesotans of every age with high-growth, high-demand career fields like manufacturing, education, and public safety. Meanwhile, our nation-leading child tax credit is cutting child poverty in Minnesota by up to 1/3. And because we instituted free breakfast and lunch in our public schools, we can stay. We can say with pride, we're a state where no student goes hungry in Minnesota. We feed our kids. During the first 2 years of Minnesota's free school meals programs, we have served over 300 million free meals, saving Minnesota families an average of $1,000 per student per year. But we're not done, not by a long shot. I saw a little guy coming in, and anybody who knows as a new parent, you walk around with a laundry list of worries. At the top of that is the cost of childcare. That cost has skyrocketed in recent years, and it's squeezing families in a way they can't afford. Let's do something about it. Tonight, I'm proposing a significant expansion of the dependent care tax credit for more than 100,000 Minnesota families with younger school-age kids, lowering the cost of childcare by $3,000 for families with one child and $6,000 for families with more. Look, parents have enough to worry about. There's not much we're going to do in here with teething and potty training, but we can make affordable child care in reach for more parents. Take that off the parents' plate. I'd ask you tonight, let's come together and figure out if there's a way we can do this to help Minnesotans. Of course, if you aren't the parent of a young child, odds are you're watching your budget more carefully than ever these days. The cost of everything, from groceries to gas to housing, is simply too high. And while there's only so much that we can do in St. Paul about the bad economic policies coming out of D.C., we can do a lot to give Minnesotans some breathing room. I'm proud to say that I've cut taxes in nearly every single budget that I've proposed and signed by the work you've done in here. We've delivered rebate checks up to $1,300, putting more money directly into the pockets of students, seniors, and working-class families. We've also lowered taxes for small businesses, and we have made Social Security tax exempt for more than 3/4 of Minnesotans. Meanwhile, we invested over $1 billion in housing, a historic investment. That is a historic investment that you made, making housing more affordable and our economic foundation more secure in communities all across the state. We've taken on medical debt, preventing it from impacting credit scores, stopping medical providers from denying care due to old unpaid bills, and we eliminated automatically transferring that debt onto a surviving spouse. We've attacked junk fees that hide in the fine print, and we even cracked down on everyday annoyances like fraudulent ticket sales. We've taken action. I'm clapping on that one. I had to buy my Springsteen tickets, but they couldn't rip me off on them. And we've taken actions to significantly lower the cost of prescription drugs, specifically insulin. Good work. But we're not done making life more affordable. This year, I proposed to cut the statewide sales tax for the first time in our state history because we could all use a little relief at the checkout counter. This budget also includes $33 million for permanent supportive housing to make sure that everyone has a safe place to live, and $34 million to help first-time home buyers afford that down payment so that everybody in Minnesota gets a shot at the American dream. And even as our collective psyche tries to recover from the after effects of Operation Metro Surge, we can take decisive action to help our economy recover as well. This budget prioritizes resources to help families and businesses get back on track, including $10 million of partially forgivable loans to businesses that lost significant revenue due to the occupation, as well as rental support for more than 9,000 Minnesota households through family homeless prevention and assistance programs. We can get people on their feet. I'm proud that we've been able to significantly invest in schools and in housing, even as we cut taxes nearly every year. And thanks to the work we did last year, we maintained a fiscally responsible budget. But we've also made the largest investments in infrastructure that Minnesota has ever seen. Right now, well-paid union workers are busy rebuilding our roads and bridges, repairing our fire stations and water treatment plants, upgrading our veterans' homes and our fish hatcheries, and providing flood mitigation systems, as well as removing lead pipes from every single home across our state. We've taken a responsible path and worked together to get Minnesota on 100% clean energy by 2040 while creating green jobs in every corner of this state. I've had the privilege of signing over 40 different climate initiatives that this body passed, including expanding our electrical vehicle infrastructure, making our homes and businesses more resilient and efficient, and cutting red tape for clean energy products. We've also taken nation-leading action on banning forever chemicals, which makes everyone healthier. But we're not done, not by a long shot. This session, I'm asking you to pass a bonding bill, an additional $907 million investments in our state's infrastructure that will support public safety, clean water, safe transportation, affordable housing. We need to keep our state strong and our people thriving. I'm asking you to join me also in supporting sustainable aviation fuel, a way we can support business doing the right thing, grow our ag economy, and creating a cleaner future. I'm asking you to join me in getting our state ready for an economy of the future. I don't want Silicon Valley deciding how artificial intelligence and other new technologies will impact our small towns and our working families. I don't want technocrats like Peter Thiel, Sam Altman, and J.D. Vance determining who wins and who loses. Look, nobody doubts the rise of AI is good news for tech companies who are making record profits. But as industries, business practices, and jobs are transformed by innovation, we need to be taking bold steps to protect and prepare our workers for what's coming. That's why we're proposing a social media tax, not on users, but on big tech companies making billions off our data. I want to use the revenue from that work for workforce development initiatives designed to get Minnesotans ready for the age of AI and other emerging technologies. Where's Senator Rest? I'd also like to propose the establishment of a new Governor's Council on the future of AI economy that would help guide us on how we invest funds to keep Minnesota a leader in innovation while making sure the benefits go to everyday people, not just the tech CEOs. Together, we've made one of the most economically secure, prosperous, and forward-thinking states in the nation. Just look at the rankings, whether it's quality of life, transportation, healthcare, you'll find us at or near the top of every category. We aren't just the best place in America to raise a family, we're one of the best places to start a business, to find a job, and to retire with comfort and dignity. And I don't know if there's a ranking on this, but there certainly should be. I think we've also made Minnesota one of the freest places in America. Reproductive freedom is under attack in states across this country, but here in Minnesota, it is an ironclad right. And our trans friends and neighbors are facing an all-out assault on their simple right to exist. But here in Minnesota, we've instituted protections, including the right to gender-affirming care, because we're a place where everyone belongs. We've seen activists pushing an anti-LGBTQ ideology everywhere they can, but they hit a brick wall here in Minnesota, where we put a stop to conversion therapy and book bans that deny kids the right to free expression. We stand up for the lookout here. People of color are facing an attack on their right to vote as the U.S. Supreme Court takes aim at the Voting Rights Act. But here in Minnesota, you passed a Voting Rights Act of our own, prohibiting standards that would deny or limit We will not deny our citizens the right to vote based on race, color, or language. And meanwhile, we protected everyone's right to participate in our democracy by making your right to vote easier. We've established automatic voter registration. Voting is good. Voting is good. It's kind of the hallmark of democracy. We've created permanent absentee voter status. We've pre-registered our 16 and 17-year-olds to vote. And we restored the franchise to 55,000 previously incarcerated Minnesotans who have already paid their debt. We're not just a place where everyone's welcome. We're a place where everyone's voice counts for something. And look, as I said again, we are not your nanny state. That's why we legalized adult use cannabis and expunged nonviolent convictions. And I'm proud to say the Lieutenant Governor and I have dramatically improved tribal relations and restored the Upper Sioux Agency State Park to its rightful owners after 161 years. You've taken new actions to protect tenants' rights. We've expanded the freedom of our workers to balance career and family, ensuring paid sick days, banning non-compete agreements, and increasing protections for workers in Amazon warehouses, construction sites, hospitals, nursing homes, public schools. And of course, we established the nation's leading paid family leave program. Since paid leave successfully launched on January 1st, we've approved more than 54,000 applications for people to take time off to bond with a new child, to take care of a family member, and to serve their community. But we're not done, not by a long shot. After all, freedom just doesn't mean freedom from government oppression and corporate abuse. It means freedom from fear. And in addition to the immense heartbreak and loss of gun violence has inflicted upon our state, especially on communities of color, the fact is that too many of us have to live in fear that we could be next. We've already taken action to protect communities from gun violence. I have signed bills out of this chamber that established red flag laws, expanded background checks, increased criminal penalties for straw purchasing guns, and passed legislation to ban deadly binary triggers, which we need to reestablish this year. And in December, I became the first governor in Minnesota history to take executive action focused specifically on gun violence prevention by creating the statewide Safety Council and directing our agencies to take new steps to protect Minnesotans across this state. This year, I want to build on those measures. Now, I know some of you might say we can't do more to stop gun violence, but you need to be more specific. What you really mean is you won't do more to stop gun violence. Because the truth is, in this chamber, we've beaten the NRA before, and we can do it again. We're going to do it again because we have a responsibility to keep our communities safer. We can and must ban weapons of war and high-capacity magazines that have no place on our streets. And we can and we must require gun owners to do what responsible gun owners already do. Lock your weapons up properly and report them when they're stolen. And we must implement a firearm insurance requirement. If we're paying more because we have a dog and a trampoline, we can damn sure add weapons to that list. We must close the ghost gun loophole. We can and we must expand our tool belt to every single early intervention resource to our schools. We take public safety seriously. That's why we've banned the use of handheld cell phones while driving. We've raised the age to purchase tobacco to 21, and we provided hundreds of millions of dollars to public safety institutions across the state to combat crime. We've increased funding for victims of crime, and we've transformed the prison system. We've taken on a broken, centralized problem that was in our state prison systems and consolidate around the ideas. We are breaking ground and creating a new State Patrol headquarters for those who serve us. Look, if this is not the year to tackle this after Annunciation and everything else we've seen, our responsibility is to serve those people that are out there. Let's move forward and prevent gun tragedies right here and put Minnesota as a leader in safety in our schools and in our communities. And look, Minnesota's consistently ranked as one of the best states to live in because we invest in programs that support children, support parents, support seniors, and support people with disabilities. But as we've seen in recent months and just today, the more generous your support system is, the more oversight you need to make sure people aren't taking unfair advantage. When I announced earlier this year that I wouldn't be running for a third term, there's your applause line. Go ahead. There you go. But I promised you that I would devote my energies to fighting fraud in our state's human resources program. Tonight, I want to update you on that progress, and I want to ask for your help in taking the next step. In February, I introduced a comprehensive anti-fraud package that we began to implement a 9-part fraud prevention roadmap that was developed by Director of Program Integrity, Tim O'Malley, who I thank for his work. We've created additional checks and balances. We've brought on more investigators, more auditors, more law enforcement agencies, as well as an outside firm to take a look at high-risk programs. People who have ripped us off are getting caught, and they are going to jail, just like today. I've said the buck stops with me. And as I know some of you will take that as an open invitation to play politics with every incident of fraud that takes place here in Minnesota, even though I have to tell you, the statistics show it's happening in red states more than here, but so be it. But taking responsibility doesn't mean just taking the blame. It means taking upon ourselves to fix the problem. And when it comes to the next step in fixing this problem, the legislature has a role to play. I proposed a package that strengthens detection, strengthens oversight, uses sophisticated analytics to identify suspicious activity more quickly, and it expands our capacity to ensure these funds are properly spent and misused dollars are captured. This bill increases criminal penalties for defrauding taxpayers, and it establishes a centralized office to lead our statewide fraud prevention efforts. Meanwhile, I've rolled out a proposal to transform the entire human services system, a major structural overhaul of the way that's administrated of these programs for decades. I want us to move away from a complex, layered administration managed by a patchwork network of counties, managed care organizations, and state agencies towards a single model where a single centralized agency can make sure they have control before the money goes out the door and it gets out efficiently. This proposal would also modernize Medicaid administration, consolidate administrative functions, and initiate independent reviews to strengthen program integrity, improve how services are delivered to all Minnesotans. My ask for you tonight is simple. If you're taking fraud seriously, take your responsibility seriously and pass legislation to stop it. If you talk about oversight, vote for that oversight in the bills that are working their way through the chamber. You gotta want to stop it, not just talk about it. So send them to my desk and I'll sign them into law immediately. And let's make sure these programs remain strong, accountable, and effective because too many Minnesotans rely on them, and I am proud that Minnesota is a generous and compassionate state that puts those programs into people's hands. For 7 years now, we've been writing a story together. The proposals I made tonight represent the beginning of our last chapter working together. I'm hopeful this chapter will be as productive as the previous 7. In fact, I'm insistent that it will be. I still have 8 months, that's not your applause line, left in this job, and I intend to use every hour of every day to make as much progress as we possibly can. So this is not a goodbye, friends, but that being said, it is my last State of the State address. Next year, take it, but the things we implemented will be here for decades. Next year, someone else will be giving that speech from right here. And I'll just note, though, that person will inherit a state that is in solid fiscal condition, one of only 12 states with a AAA bond rating. That's the work you've done. But I will just say it's been an honor of a lifetime for Gwen and I to serve in this position. And it's been a particular privilege to sit in this chair during some of the most pivotal moments in our state's history. I'll never forget the way people of this state showed up for each other during these consequential times. I don't think anyone should be allowed to forget. And that's why recently I signed an executive order establishing the Governor's Council to document the impact of Operation Metro Surge, not just the trauma, but the redemptive stories of Minnesotans who come together to support one another and advocate peacefully for their neighbors. I want to close with just one of those stories that came to my attention. It comes from a Minnesotan I've never met. He calls himself Norm. I don't know if that's his name. I follow him on social media because he's usually talking about sports. But he's also been working in his community to help families who have loved ones abducted during the occupation of Minnesota, raising funds online to help those families stay in their homes despite the loss of their breadwinners. And last week, ICE released one such person from a facility in South Texas. That's good news. The bad news is they released them without any cash, any ID, or any way to get home. So Norm spent the day trying to figure out how to get money to a total stranger to buy a bus ticket to get them home. Then he realized very difficult to get home on Greyhound from South Texas. So eventually Norm decided he'd take matters into his own hands. He bought a ticket on the night's last flight out to Austin. He rented a car. He drove in the rain to pick up a fellow Minnesotan near midnight outside a gas station in some random town in Texas. Paid for a hotel, so they stayed overnight. In the morning, Norm took his new friend to Walmart, bought him some new clothes, bought a round of breakfast tacos before flying him back to Minnesota so he could be reunited with his family, including a new baby. On the drive home, Norm wrote online, he said this. He said he got taken in the winter, and now it's summer. Every year around this time, Minnesotans watch the last of the snow melting and realize that brighter days are right around the corner. There will be Twins baseball, maybe even good Twins baseball, to build on a great Lynx season. There'll be fishing and boating on the lakes. There'll be the Great Minnesota Get-Together, and summer is just around the corner. This winter has been particularly cold and bitter for so many of our neighbors, but we're ready to move beyond this season of grief. We're never going to forget those that we lost, and neither will we forget that we found to be true about ourselves and our neighbors, that we are strong, we are resilient, we are generous, we are compassionate, and we're in this thing together. Our work in St. Paul right here is simply to make our state a place worthy of the incredible people who live in this state. For 7 years, we've been doing that together. We've got one more chance to do it again, so let's get to work. Thank you, Minnesota.
Governor Tim Walz has just wrapped up his final State of the State address. We expect House and Senate leadership to speak to the media shortly and provide comments and reactions to the governor's speech. You can watch coverage of media availabilities on the House website at house.mn.gov. And for a nonpartisan breakdown of Governor Tim Walz's final State of the State address, check out our Session Daily work at house.mn.gov/sessiondaily.
ask that you would stay in your seat until the Sergeant at Arms escorts you out of the chamber at the appropriate time. I call on Senator Murphy.
Madam President, I move the joint convention do now adjourn.
Senator Murphy moves that the joint convention do now adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails, and I declare the joint convention adjourned. The House will come to order. I recognize the member from Anoka, Representative Niska.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 2 p.m. Thursday, April 30th, 2026.
Representative Niska moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 2 o'clock p.m. Thursday, April 30th, 2026. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Representative Niska.
I move that the House do now adjourn.
Representative Niska moves that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails and the House stands adjourned until 2 o'clock p.m. Thursday, April 30th, 2026.